Hi, Craig.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I was having some issues with my audio. I got an email from someone that says the meeting requires let me see.
Hey y'all.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
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 It's Friday.
Yeah. Mike, are you guys working today? I know Influence & Co. has a holiday today.
Yeah, we're working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Well, I am, but
Carrie, how was your first week on your new job?
It was good. Hectic as usual, getting everything kind of figured out and, the right people to, ask for various accesses. So, but yeah, it was good. It was good.
Oh, good. Hi, Katie. It's nice to see you. I feel
Hey,
like
Louise.
I never get to see you on video anymore.
Hey, Marissa. Thanks for joining us. We're so excited to have you. You look great.
Oh, thank you. First time to actually put makeup on and
Yeah, I feel you, girl.
from underneath the rock, so to speak. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you.
So many people popping on. This is great. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Mm.
Diamond, what's your mug say this morning?
It's all good.
Is it though?
A little reminder for Friday.
I always feel like you have fun mugs.
I have quite the collection, that's for sure.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. Nikki, what is that painting that's behind you?
That is actually my great aunt's painting. She had tons of artwork. Her name was Anne Castle. And when she passed away, I got just a crap ton of her paintings, and they're all just amazing and huge.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that your living room that you're in?
Uh-huh.
Oh, cool. Let's see, Jennifer Wiggs, I know that you're a painter. It looks like you have some wonderful artwork behind you too. Oh, I think you're muted actually, Jennifer.
I can unmute her. You're unmuted now. You should be able to speak.
Oh, okay, yes. Yes, I'm in my living room. I have art in stacks everywhere.
Nice. Do you still have a studio over at Orr Street?
I do, yes. I'm heading, as soon as I'm done here, I'm heading over there. I'm there all the time,
Awesome, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, we were hoping to host our May event at Orr Street, but obviously we've all been restricted to the pandemic. So hopefully we get to host an event there sometime in 2021. I don't know.
That would be great. We just don't know when, but we are looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Good morning, Jasmine. It's nice to see you. I know Brooke's on the line. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hey, keeping the camera off.
Hi, Nikki. It's so good to have you. We're excited about you being with us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Heather, it looks like you have some neat art behind you too. What's that you have there?
I have Wonder Woman. I have a Wonder Woman collection. So those are hand-drawn images that people have.
That's wonderful. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Let's see, Lindsay, did we have an icebreaker for this morning?
Yeah, so the icebreaker question, I thought given that everyone is on social media, it'd be kind of fun to hear like who everyone's favorite follow is, if there's like someone that you've learned a ton from recently, or if there's someone that you just find delightful and that makes you laugh on a regular basis. So I'd love to kind of hear of who's everyone's favorite follow. If you want to stick it in the chat, I'm always looking for some new folks to learn from and to laugh at. So if you have any social media share or follows that you want to share, I was going to share that I follow this comedian. Her name is Heather McMahon. I feel like a lot of millennial women follow her. But she just like provides a lot of comic relief when I feel like I need it, and just feels like a very real human. So she's my favorite follow as of right now. So Louise, feel free to kind of pass it around if anyone wants to share who theirs is.
Well, I've been following Creative Pep Talk podcast, which I think is really great. It's all about different kinds of creatives. It's not real long, and there's a new one every week.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool. I'll have to look it up. I've been loving following all the new creative accounts that I think I've been finding, like all the Black creatives that people are sharing and putting out. I've really loved looking at all the new artwork and different textile work. I love fabric and fibers art and stuff like that. So it's been cool to see a lot of that.
Very cool.
Who else has anything good that they want to share?
I put it in the chat, but I love Oliver Jeffers. He's an author and illustrator. My kids have a couple of his books. One is Stuck and The Day the Crayons Quit. And he lives in New York, and my friend Carrie got to meet him in person, which I think is pretty cool. But he's always got really happy things, and did a TED Talk actually during quarantine that was really good about just living on the earth. So yeah, I like him a lot.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. Katie, who is this that you shared?
It's a really ridiculous account that I follow on Twitter. It's this playwright who has studied Richard Nixon and pretends to be him, and he has like auxiliary accounts of his like staff members. It's very silly.
I can confirm that it is pretty entertaining.
It's really entertaining, yeah.
That's so fun. Kayla, who is this that you shared?
I'm not actually sure who they are. I just followed them really recently with everything going on in the world. They've been providing a lot of information and a lot of opinions, and it's just been helpful to follow along. But apparently they have a podcast. I just looked at their profile and I saw that, so I'm gonna have to check that out too.
That's awesome. Craig, this is a good share.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of him with the Netflix special with Middleditch and Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been following him a lot recently.
Yeah, I think I've followed him on Twitter, Instagram for a while, and he's so funny and so ridiculous. And he collaborates with a lot of other people too, so it's always funny to see who he's working with. That's wonderful. I recently followed Emmanuel Acho on Instagram. He's like a former NFL player. Yeah, and he has been doing a series recently. It's called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, and he did a series with Matthew McConaughey and the Gaines family, like Chip and Joanna Gaines, and it's like a 10-minute conversation about the different ways that we speak about race and in what context, and it's really eye-opening and just a really cool short little listen. I'll pop that in the chat.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that. He's Emmanuel Acho has just navigated a lot of white spaces as a Black male, and so I really appreciate the way that he kind of talks through what that experience is, and in particular, I haven't seen the one with Chip and Joanna. I did watch the one with McConaughey. It was just like pleasantly surprised by that conversation. I don't know what I thought McConaughey would be like in that conversation, but I found it encouraging. He's just delightfully strange in all the best ways. So kind of hearing the way he like verbally processes things in such a strange way, but I just found it really interesting. So if you haven't seen that yet, I think it's maybe a 5 to 10 minute video that's pretty easy to watch.
I hear he's running for governor of Texas. I hope that's true. So
really, I didn't know. That's so neat.
Whoa. Do you think his campaign slogan will be "All right, all right, all right"?
It's got to be. At least the byline.
Yeah. Well, you know, he has that like "Just Keep Living" like nonprofit organization that he has. But I was reading something about him not that long ago. His brother has a son that he names Miller. So his name is Miller McConaughey, but his middle name is Light. They named their son Miller Light McConaughey, which just felt like, of course, there's someone in their family named Miller Light McConaughey.
I love that.
It's so funny. Hey, Sarah, I just saw what you put in the chat. Tell us about who you're following.
Oh, I have one of my friends from back home up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. She is just she just kind of got into photography a couple of years ago, and she's one of those people that just felt it, and her photographs are phenomenal. She does a lot of work with different forms of lighting, and she photographs her children, and one of her children just is in remission now. He had leukemia for a few years, so the photographs are just magical and beautiful. So I would highly suggest looking at those. And then I've been following Miss Chrissy Face. She's an awesome fly fisher. She's sponsored by Orvis, but I got a fly rod for Christmas this year, and I've been really
that's so cool.
I've been nervous to like go out there and test it out, but she's been giving me more confidence. So.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that, Sarah. I love when you post that you're out fishing with you and Zach, and we need to go out fishing together sometime.
Yeah, for sure. The regular fishing, I like feel comfortable there, but fly fishing is just everything is just so nuanced, but it's so cool. So I'm hoping I can get better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Kelsey, it's good to see you, and baby Ollie. All are welcome at Creative Mornings, including you. So we are an inclusive organization.
Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you, Louise, for kind of kicking us off and just moderating for us this morning. For those of you who've never been here before, my name is Lindsay, so I'm the local host of Creative Mornings Columbia. There are several folks on this call who helped me put this event together. So if you're one of those folks, just give us a little raise hand so we know who you are. I do not need to take any credit all myself. I couldn't do it without these amazing people on our team. So to kick us off this morning, I just wanted to say welcome to Creative Mornings, and also happy Juneteenth. If you were unfamiliar with Juneteenth, I'm going to let Adonica, who's one of our guest speakers this morning, tell us a little bit more about that, and then the local celebration that's happening today. So with all of that in mind, we thought it was really important, not just in this, to lean into this kind of current cultural moment, but as Creative Mornings as an organization, we want to lean into this movement as a whole. Creative Mornings was founded under the principles that all are welcome, all people are creative. We are an inclusive organization, so all people voices are welcomed here. And so with Juneteenth in mind, we thought it would be really valuable to hear from some Black people in our community, particularly Black women. I feel like often are not elevated properly. So I have asked several ladies here to share a little bit about their creative journey and how it pertains to our global theme of insecure. But their experience is unique in a variety of ways. So I'm really excited to hear more about them as individuals, their business goals, how creativity blossoms in their life. And then we're going to welcome Nikki McGruder, who's going to speak on the global theme of insecure. I had the pleasure of sitting in one of Nikki's seminars several years ago at Influence & Co. and really enjoyed it and felt like I walked away with a million other things that I needed to learn. So I'm hopeful that we can all gain something from her today as she speaks to us during our main talk. But with that in mind, I want to move away from me being the only person who's talking, and I wanted to welcome Jasmine Serrano, who is a coworker of mine, a friend, but also just a local creative. So I wanted to open it up and let Jasmine talk about her creative experience, how it pertains to the local theme Insecure. And then we'll just move on from there. Marissa, you'll be up next, and then Adonica, you'll be our last guest speaker, and then we'll run through some housekeeping items before Nikki speaks. So Jasmine, it's all up to you, girl.
Okay, cool. I had no idea I would be going first. So
surprise!
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so like Lindsay said, I work with her at Influence & Co. There are quite a few ICO people on this call. which is great. Who doesn't want the opportunity to be really vulnerable in front of a bunch of strangers and their coworkers? So thank you for this opportunity. No, actually, I don't care. So yeah, when Lindsay approached me about this, she was just kind of like, yeah, you're a creative person, and I'd love for you to speak. And I asked her what I should talk about, and she said, just talk about literally whatever you want to. And so in thinking about what I wanted to say to you guys today, I thought I could maybe talk to you about my work at ICO and the way that that is creatively challenging for me, and creatively fulfilling for me, or I could talk to you about writing and why I love it and why it's such an important outlet for me. But to be perfectly honest with you, my mental health these last few months it's suffered enormously, as I think, a lot of us are feeling. And so I'm not feeling, the creative pull that I've been feeling. And it also, with it being Juneteenth and this huge moment of reflection, it just didn't feel right for me to talk about what my creative process is. And as Lindsay said, how it's blossoming in my life. But what I do want to talk about is the things that I have been reflecting on, and offer maybe a point for you guys to consider in your own reflection today for Juneteenth. And this day is really important for me in particular because it's a month out from my 27th birthday. And that age is really important to me for a number of reasons. It's the age my mother was when she had me, her first child, all by herself. It is the age that Jean-Michel Basquiat, the Black artist that kind of rose to prominence in the 80s, it's the age he died tragically of a drug overdose. It's what informs this little tattoo right here that I have. It's a Basquiat crown. And it is also, of course, the age Breonna Taylor would have been if she had lived to see another birthday. And so it's just, the day weighs really heavy on me. And the theme of insecure, of course, made me think of the show Insecure, which if you're not watching that, you absolutely should, because it is hilarious and the music is awesome and the outfits are amazing. But I think what's so great about that show is how uninterested it is in explaining itself or making itself palatable to white people. And why I think that's so interesting is because personally, as a Black creative, that's not something that comes naturally to me, particularly as a Black creative who is very used to moving in white spaces and existing in white spaces. My entire education took place in predominantly white institutions. My entire professional experience has taken place in just kind of like this sea of whiteness. And what that does to you as a Black creative is whiteness becomes the lens through which you assess your own work. And I won't speak for all Black creatives, but for me as a Black person, it becomes the lens through which I assess my work and determine its value, because whiteness is it's what's mainstream. And the stories of Black people and Blackness that are palatable to the mainstream are kind of like, these like inspiration porn type stories, or they're opportunities for education, or they are, particularly now in this moment, stories of trauma and Black pain and suffering. And while those stories are important, and I absolutely think that you should listen to them and learn from them, I don't think that they should be the only stories that you seek out about us. We have more to offer you than that. And when you only seek out stories of Black pain, or you only pay attention to stories of Black pain or trauma, what it does is it flattens us as people. And I think it robs us of our humanity. And then what that does for your allyship is that means that it's only activated in our pain, and it's only activated in moments of great Black suffering. And I think it has to be a little more than that, because what it does is, then we become creatures of pain for you. And instead of just kind of these people with fully lived experiences. And so that's kind of what I want to leave you with, is just to really think about how you're engaging with Blackness, to really think about what informs your protest. If it's just anger, if it's just outrage at these like really horrific images, then I would say gently that's not enough, because it's not sustainable. It's going to be fueled by the continued killing of Black bodies. And I would really love for that protest to be informed and come from a place of love, because that's where mine comes from. It's a profound place of love and appreciation for Blackness and for Black people. And for that to happen, you really have to engage with stories and art by and about Black people. And just kind of as an example, like as a straight woman, as a cis woman, I have to do the same thing for LGBTQ people. I have to intentionally seek out the things about themselves that they love, that they find comfort in, that they find joy in, the things that make them feel safe and whole in this world, and understand that while I can't partake in it, I can absolutely understand and appreciate why those aspects of their identity are so important to them, and then fight for their right to revel in that safely and without fear. And I would just ask that you guys do the same for us. So I'll go ahead and cede my time. I think I went over my 5 minutes, but I appreciate you guys listening to me. And I thank you, Lindsay, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys today. So thank you.
Yeah, let's all give Jasmine some kudos for being vulnerable and just sharing a little bit more about her personal experience. Jasmine, I really do appreciate that. Thank you for being candid and honest and open to sharing what your experience is. I'm like trying not to tear up. For those of you who know me, this is not a shock to you, but I just feel really grateful to know you and to hear your experience and learning more about how I can step into that gap for you. So thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate that. Next up, I'd like to move the microphone over to Marissa Whitley. So Marissa, if you want to kind of jump in here, the stage is all yours, and share a little bit about you and your experience. And you can feel free to tell us a little bit about your business too, if you're comfortable, but I'll hand it off to you.
Hey, thank you. Good morning. Like Jasmine had said, it's not a discussion that I wanted to kind of share willingly. It's just, no one has ever really asked about this part of me. And I don't really share it willingly or openly. I'm a pretty private person, so I'm very insecure in this moment. And I saw your email and I immediately said, no, I don't want to be part of this conversation. And I thought, why not? Everything that's going on in the climate right now touches all of us in a different way. All of us have, like you said, a very unique and individual connection to everything that's going on. And for me, it's a conversation that needs to be shared and talked about. And I love that there's a community that wants to have this discussion. So thank you for even just having this platform and this time, because with everything going on with COVID and just, I've been home since St. Patrick's Day with my family, and there hasn't been that individual reflection, that time. And it's, like Jasmine said, it's been a very hard, difficult time of just day-to-day reflection that has to be had. And I think so much of where my passion in my business has come from starts with race relations for me. I am a product of a beautiful biracial relationship. My mother was white, my father was Black, and both have since passed away. And so I always had that identity that so much of who I was lost. So being raised in Springfield, it's predominantly white. It's still, I think, is deemed the whitest city in the country. And I don't know if that's a fact. I haven't wanted to do research on that because it's not something that I'm proud of. But in everything going on, it hits me really hard because I didn't know about Juneteenth. I didn't know about all of the injustices that went on. I wasn't taught these things. My family never really shared anything about my father because they themselves were prejudiced. So there's this ingrained insecurity in who I am every day. Like Jasmine said, I was the only Black kid being mixed from the time I started kindergarten to the day I graduated high school. You know, I was it. I was that token, if you will. And in that comes a lot of responsibility that I didn't even know I had. And I feel now in today, with today being Juneteenth, that I failed. I don't have that knowledge that I should have taught myself about myself. And so there's so many labels that are put upon us that we don't even know. You know, I don't really have an understanding of all that I was to my classmates and my teachers, but I wanted to achieve. That's how I wanted to be and find acceptance. And in that came my identity, you know, so I wanted to be the best. I went out for everything, and I was an athlete, and I you know, played sports, and I did music, and I wanted to be that positive person in someone's life, but I didn't know how much of that stemmed from not knowing who I truly was and am. And so I think for me, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I think it came from wanting to be accepted. And so when I started walking around for fundraisers, for raising money for all the things that I wanted to do and participate, my love of design stemmed from that engagement with my neighbors. But I mean, I was raised in Springfield in 1986. I had brothers and sisters, and after my mother passed away, we were separated between aunts and uncles. And so even being the youngest of four, I was the youngest, and I ended up kind of being raised as an only child. And so my neighbors became my extended family, and in that became work that I would do for them, and I would help them. And so interior design really stemmed from my love of people and wanting to kind of be someone of service for them. And so I think labels are put upon us as well. And when I realized that it felt good to be of service and to be needed in that way, and to be accepted in that way, it filled me in a way that I had never really been filled. And so for me, interior design fills my cup, if you will. It really gives me something that nothing else can give me. And so I own the Whitley company. I, like Jasmine had said, you know, 27 was a poignant age for her, and 35 was a poignant age for me. My mother died at 35, I was 3, and I got my interior design degree 12 days before my 35th birthday. And so I think for me, I knew that I wanted to be of service, I just never knew how. And my passion of interior design really kind of guided my life, and was that line that filled my life no matter where I lived and no matter what I did. It was kind of my hobby. And so it's just been wonderful that I've been able to fill my life with something that truly gives me that sense of purpose. And so just looking today at where we are in the world, it is overwhelming, but that reflection in that time of being able to engage with other people and just have the acknowledgement and the acceptance, all of which just, it really brings all of us to a place of common ground. And I think that's just one thing that we truly need. So thank you for having me today. And it's just, it's a tough time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, Marissa. I do appreciate you being vulnerable as well, and just sharing a little bit more about your experience, just how you've been navigating the world your entire life. I am 35, so I feel like there are a lot of things that I have not accomplished in my life that I wish I had, but just hearing your perspective and just your view of the world is really encouraging to me. So just thank you for being here, and thank you for saying yes. I know that it was uncomfortable for me to ask in a lot of ways. I felt like I'm always cautious to not make it sound like this is just something that's here's this one-time opportunity. I really want to foster our community for this to be a long-term opportunity for women just like you. So just thank you for kind of kicking us off and helping us set the pace for the future. I do appreciate you being here. So, and if you guys haven't seen Marissa's work, her one of our coworkers, Alyssa, Patsy is our COO at Influence & Co. Her home is beautiful thanks to Marissa, and some of her other work is just outstanding. So interior design also fills my cup. It's just not something that I do for a living. So I just really appreciate you being here. So with that in mind, our last speaker that we have is Adonica Coleman. Adonica, where are you? There you are, I see you. So one of our team members, Jill Dudley, is a friend of Adonica's, and when I sent the email out to the team and said, who can we feature? It's Juneteenth. I really want to be aware of what's happening and how we want to commemorate this day and really open it up to the voices in our community. And she said, Adonica would be great. And I know that you're hosting and facilitating a Juneteenth celebration today, so I'd love to hear more about that. But I'm going to hand it off to you and let you share a little bit more about yourself and your role in the community as an event planner. So I'm excited to introduce Adonica Coleman.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, okay, because I'm in my car parked, you know, I'm on the move. So I am Adonica Coleman, and I am the owner of A2D Events here in town, and we are a full-service event planning company that focuses mainly on corporate events and community events and fundraising events. And we are also the home of a professional MC and hosting service, if that's anything you ever need. So yes, I will talk a little bit about the Juneteenth celebration here in a moment. Myself and Nikki McGruder, who is your wonderful guest speaker. Nikki, I'm gonna use your word, amazing guest speaker today. Are co-hosting that together along with some other folks in the community. So I'll get back to that. But I do want to just say thank you to Jasmine and to Marissa for just really opening up and sharing today some things that I feel like any Black woman or person on this call can relate to about everything that was said. So I appreciate you guys opening up and being vulnerable to this entire group. So, I saw the topic, insecure, and I have to be honest, I really just paid attention to it last night because I have been crazy planning this event this week. And I thought, insecure. I don't really know. So of course the show Insecure popped in my head immediately. That has become the thing. And then I Googled it, because I'm like, I want to know what the actual definition of insecurity is. And when I Googled it, the show popped up first. So I'm like, man, when you overtake the definition with a TV show, that's big right there. But for me, I could not think of a thing last night. So for me, the best thing to do as a creative person is go to sleep, because normally I'm going to pop up the next morning at 4 or 5, and that's when my most creative juices are flowing at that time in the morning. Always has been like that for me. Do you know what's interesting though? I did not realize that I was a creative when I was younger. I did not know that there was, somebody's making fun of me because they can see my mouth moving in the car. I didn't realize that there was a name for what I had inside me. I just knew that I like to create things and that I like to make things go from this to that in some way. That's always what I felt like. I want to take something that starts with this and take it to that. And so here we go. I'm just going to run down really quick. Elementary school, middle school, went to a great diverse school in St. Louis. It was a gifted school. I tested into it. It was magnet. We had teachers of every race. We had male teachers, female teachers, Black teachers, white teachers. They're secure. High school DSEG program, insecure. The only Black girl on the cheerleading squad for 3 years, insecure. Pregnant in my senior year of high school, had to drop off the cheerleading squad. It was a huge scandal, insecure. A teenage mom at 18 years old, insecure. Went to cosmetology school, felt like I found my niche. Worked in a salon, did that for quite a few years. Secure. Pay attention to where I'm feeling secure. Secure. You know, met my husband when I was 26, got married at 27. Secure. Moved from St. Louis to Wichita, Kansas, to a suburban, predominantly white neighborhood. Insecure. Moved from Wichita, Kansas to Baltimore, Maryland, to a neighborhood that was diverse. Joined a church that was diverse. Secure. Moved from Baltimore, Maryland to Columbia, to a predominantly white neighborhood. Insecure. Am I good enough? Is this, I have to explain to everybody, well, why you only this age? Why is your daughter so old? All these things, insecure. Until finally you realize, I realized, it is what it is. You either love me or you leave me. That's what it is. And I probably didn't fully walk into that and step into that until I was probably in my early 30s. But I'm so glad I did. So at that time, I had gone back to school, gotten a certification in interior design, creative, secure. The market crashed in 2008. Got to figure out what I'm going to do. Started planning parties for friends, grew this business from the ground up, started from the bottom, now I'm here, secure. Totally secure. Totally happy with who I am, where I am. Yes, I had a daughter out of wedlock. Yes, I'm 46, I think, 46 in a few weeks. Yes, my oldest daughter is 27, just like you, Jasmine. Love to introduce her to people. Love for people to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe. Yes, secure. It is what it is. And I will tell you that doing what I'm doing right now, working in this community, working in the ways that help bring people together, secure in that. So I just want everybody on this call to know that when you're feeling insecure, work through that. We will get through this time. This is a hard time for us. Let's keep it real. It's not easy. It's not easy to show up and put the face on when on the inside you might be feeling a little iffy. So what Jasmine said is important. Do not just focus on the tragedy. Do not just focus on, oh my God, these poor Black people. Do not. We have successes. We have failures. We have everyday lives. I mean, if anybody wants to sit down and talk to me, I love to talk about my life. It's pretty good. So don't put us all in one box or another. We all have a different story. So let's talk about Juneteenth. So today we are celebrating Juneteenth. We're here to celebrate and educate. If anybody has been following along on the Como Celebrates Juneteenth event page on Facebook or the website, we are trying very hard to push a lot of education out. We're doing it in a fun way. I am parked in front of Cars Church, which is at 606 Ridgeway. That's where we'll be at 11 o'clock. It's just a drive-in event. We're going to give away some things. We've got some people have pre-ordered some T-shirts and some food. They're going to come pick that up. And then we have just a very short program that we're going to do in person. And then we're going to let everybody go back home, and they can log on at 3 o'clock and see all the rest of our wonderfully curated programming live online. So we want to have each and every one of you join us online today, starting at 3 o'clock. We are going, you will be truly amazed at the things that our community has put together for this event. So we surely hope that you will join us. And you can check out the website at www.comocelebratesjuneteenth.com. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Adonica. Your energy is contagious, so I want to hang out with you sometime in the near future. I just am loving all that energy that you're putting into your creative endeavors, and just maintaining a sense of positivity, even when things are really hard. Not a false sense of positivity, but knowing that we can't sit in the hardness forever. So I'm just really encouraged by you. Thank you so much for kind of joining this event that you didn't know what you were kind of walking into. So I appreciate you just being vulnerable like our other guests and sharing about your experience. So if you guys have an opportunity, I tried to snag a reservation for that Juneteenth celebration and those tickets went fast. So if you're not able to do that, then definitely, you know, go to the website that she mentioned and tune in at 3 o'clock. I know that's where I'll be at 3 o'clock. I'm so excited about that. So thank you, Adonica, Jasmine, Marissa. I really do appreciate all of you just sharing your journeys. So before we move into our next phase of the event where Nikki will be joining as our main speaker, we have some housekeeping items we have to cover for every single one of these events that we do. So I'm going to run through some slides with you, talking about our global sponsors, local sponsorships, and then we'll talk a little bit about the theme, and then I'll hand it off to Nikki. I did want to kind of point out, as I'm going through these slides, all the information will be delivered to you via email after the meeting, so don't feel like you have to like screenshot or grab anything right away. All this information will be emailed to you so you can take advantage of some of the offers. Additionally, at all of our events, we have what we call our collaboration station. So if you're a local creative person, and remember, everyone is creative, so whether you're looking for someone to look over something that you've written, if you're like, hey, I really want to have my home redesigned, Marissa, can we connect? I'd love for everyone to put in the chat box your information if you're looking to collaborate with someone, if you're looking for some interior design help, if you're looking for someone to come speak at your company event. I know that Nikki does that, so like put your information there. If there's something that a painting you're working on and you want someone to take a look at your work, like this is the opportunity. If you want to put all those in the group chat, Craig, our trusty recorder here, will grab all that information, and all of that will also be delivered to everyone in the same email with the sponsorship information. So again, don't feel like you have to rush through that. So I just ask that once Nikki starts speaking at the end of this slide deck, that we don't populate the chat with a ton of things for everyone. It can get really distracting to the speaker and to the attendees to constantly see those popping up. However, if you have questions for Nikki that we can review at the end of her talk, you can send those to Carrie Watkins directly in the chat box. So Carrie is on our team. Carrie's going to collect those questions throughout Nikki's talk, and at the end she'll filter those through Nikki. But if you don't think of a question until the very end, you can raise your hand and we'll be sure to make sure Nikki gets your question. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to run through some slides, so bear with me. Technology is never my friend. I feel like I'm always kind of struggling to get to do this the right way. All right. Can everyone see the screen? We good? Awesome. Okay, so again, welcome to Creative Mornings. If you are unfamiliar with our local organization, I encourage you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, create an account at creativemornings.com, Columbia. And so what we're going to do, I'll keep this up here for just a second. So if you want to screenshot this and make sure that you have all our information so that you're aware of what our next event is and theme and any events that we host in the future, I'm fingers crossed that beyond September we can start meeting in person again. Pending the coronavirus, of course. So continue to follow us along on this journey. Next, it just is a couple of slides that they put in the slide deck for us to share with our communities that I thought would be kind of just helpful to collectively express how we're all feeling. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe not in this moment, but just in general, I mean, feel free to raise your hand. I'm gonna raise 2 hands because I have felt really overwhelmed lately, just in general. Not just with current events, but as a person who is walking through mental health things on a daily basis, I can tend to feel overwhelmed. And so I just don't want anyone to feel alone. So if you're feeling overwhelmed in this moment or just in general, you know, raise your hand with me. Next, and like raise your hand if you believe that we're all in this together. And I do believe that. I want to lean into not just the cultural moment, but just collectively as a community. There's just a lot happening in the world. And I do believe that as a white person in this community, it's my responsibility to educate myself, to stand in the gap for my Black brothers and sisters whenever they are under attack. But I also want to really take to heart what Jasmine said and not really lean into all those stories of pain, but lean into those positive stories and just want to be that advocate. So as I kind of am leaning into that, I do believe that we're all in this together. So raise your hand if you also believe that. Awesome. And then next, raise your hand if you're grateful for something or someone. I, in particular, am just grateful to host this event. I still don't know how I got here. It was a wild journey to getting this chapter launched. It took many months, and then the coronavirus kind of like kicked us all into virtual events, but I'm just grateful that we're able to do it this way. I can't wait to see all of you in person again, but I'm grateful for, in particular, the 3 women that shared prior to me speaking, and then really thankful for Nikki just for being open to accepting the invitation that we extended, really unsure of what you were stepping into. So thanks for, having confidence in us and joining us today. So raise your hand if you're also feeling grateful for something or someone. Awesome. Okay, put all my feelings back inside. Moving on, we want to talk a little bit about our global sponsor. So if you're unfamiliar with Creative Mornings, it's a global organization. We have chapters all over the world. I think we have over 200 chapters now, so Columbia is just one of those. And the only way that these events can happen is that companies that actually give a damn are really supporting these creative communities. So our global team is in Brooklyn. There's only about 10 of them. And the only way that they're able to do their job is because WordPress, Mailchimp, and Basecamp have all been companies that have really championed creativity and allowed them to exist so that they can support us. We don't receive any money from these companies directly. All of our sponsorships come from local sponsorships. And so, but these companies allow just Creative Mornings Global to exist so that we have the support of that global team should we need it along the way. And they've been amazing, especially during this time of just providing kind of just emotional support as well. So I'm really thankful for our Creative Mornings team. One of our first sponsors here is Mailchimp. So Mailchimp is our official global partner for marketing. If you're unfamiliar with Mailchimp, it is an all-in-one marketing platform, and they've been supporting Creative Mornings since the very, very beginning. I have not been as consistent about sending out newsletters as I'd like to be. I don't have anything to say, and so I always hesitate to send something out just for the sake of doing it. But I think post this event, I'd love to collect some resources and some opportunities for our local folks to really kind of lean in that I'll be putting together in a newsletter. So with Mailchimp in mind, if you are looking for something fresh to read, we all have a little extra spare time these days. So if you're looking for something to read, Courier Media is a bi-monthly magazine and the newest member of Mailchimp's family. So they deliver real stories, insights, and more to help you work better, live smarter, and be happier. So if you want to sign up for this, again, all this info will be emailed to you after the fact. But this is something new that I'm planning on taking advantage of as well. Our other global sponsor is WordPress. WordPress is our official global partner for web publishing. I think most of us are familiar with WordPress and all that they offer. So with that in mind, they are bringing back their Own Your Content series. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to wordpress.com, but they're bringing that back for a season 3. It says we're revisiting our favorite insights to learn various ways we can honor our work by owning our content, especially in the face of uncertainty. They'll be sharing webinars and timely content to complement all of the reading that you're doing. So if you're curious about this and what this is going to entail, I encourage you to go to wordpress.com. I'm unfamiliar with this in particular, so this is something I want to be checking out as well. Our last global sponsor is Basecamp. Basecamp is our newest partner, but they are a global partner for project management. So they're launching a new initiative called, let's see, Hey. So to get on the email list and to try out what Hey is. So it says, it feels great to get an email from someone you care about or a newsletter you enjoy. Hey is a new email service made from the folks at Basecamp. They said, think like Gmail, but carefully designed to make your inbox delightful again. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm fascinated to find out why and how. So again, all of these are offers that I am going to be checking out myself. So I encourage you, if you're just kind of curious to know what this does to your inbox. And so it looks like in order to get on the list, they're doing some kind of entry-level ways for people to get involved. So send them your love story, hate story, long, short, with your relationship to email. Personally, email stresses me out. It's what I look at all day, every day at work. So it's like the last thing that I want to do when I'm not working, but I'm kind of curious about how this curates your list to make it a little bit more enjoyable. So I encourage you to check it out too. And then I want to talk a little bit about our local sponsors. So obviously, I say this every time, we're not allowed to meet in person per global rules until at least September. But we had so many local sponsors that joined us from the very beginning and who wanted to support this initiative in our community to open it up for all creative people. So some of these sponsors include Camacho Coffee. Jesse over there has given us a generous discount on our coffee every month. So hopefully when we see you again soon, I can give you a mug and a hot cup of coffee that we can all share together. Cosmic Sauce was also one of our sponsors. Jill is on our team, on our planning team, and Jill is our videographer at Cosmic Sauce. So they are going to be recording our events every month and posting those online. Verbosity Interactive. So this was a gentleman named Dean from Verbosity reached out to me and said, hey, you know, we really love what you're doing. We'd love to pay for your coffee every month. So not only is Jesse offering us coffee at a discount, but Verbosity has generously agreed to pay for that. So it's just expenses that we do not have to worry about. I don't make any money hosting this chapter, and neither does anyone on the team. This is purely a volunteer effort. So we really do rely on these local sponsors to help us keep things moving. And then lastly, Equipment Share is our breakfast sponsor. So should we see each other again soon, Equipment Share will be providing bagels or donuts or you name it, your breakfast item of choice. That'll be something that they'll be sponsoring for us. So that slide earlier that said, are you grateful for something or someone? I'm really grateful to all of these local sponsors who jumped in, who didn't have a clue what Creative Mornings was, but just said, we want to support whatever we can in our Columbia community to help encourage creative people to collaborate together. So really thankful for all of them. Our last announcement here is virtual field trips. So this is something really cool that Creative Mornings offers. If you're interested at all, I know some of you in our local community have attended these, but these, before coronavirus kind of wrecked the entire social life of everyone, field trips were something we could do locally. Maybe a local brewery would open up for us to take a tour as a group, or maybe we could go to a local store, but we could go see some of Marissa's work in person. Like, so these field trips existed prior to coronavirus. However, now that we are all kind of stuck at home, these field trips have gone virtual. So if you're interested in just learning a little bit more, I love the photos they chose here of like a gentleman creating something with his own hands or a woman leading a yoga class. These field trips are open to any and all of our attendees. You just have to sign up at creativemornings.com/field-trips. And if you're like, hey, I have a really cool skill or something that I'd love to share with the global universe of Creative Mornings, I'd love to host one. You can go there and you can also sign up to be a host of a local field trip. So if you haven't checked those out and you're just looking for something to do, that is an excellent option. And just as a reminder, we mentioned this earlier, is that Creative Mornings is 215 chapters all over the globe. I think that other slide of we're all in this together, seeing this makes me feel that way as well. I've got a Slack channel going with all the hosts of all of the global organizations within Creative Mornings, and some have just been, I think, felt really down and discouraged because they're not able to meet in person. But I know some folks cross-join other Creative Mornings events. But just being in that channel and being able to encourage one another and say, like, we are all in this together. We're hosting these events virtually. We're doing our best to really meet the needs of our creative community. It just makes me feel less alone to know that all of these different people all over the globe in many languages are doing Creative Mornings. So I encourage you to kind of check more about that out if you're interested in attending an event that takes place in LA or Sao Paulo or wherever you're interested. I encourage you to kind of check those out. Everything should be online. And without hope, first, before we introduce Nikki, we have to do a reading of our Creative Mornings Manifesto. And this is something we do every single event just to remind everyone in the community that Creative Mornings is everyone is creative and everyone is welcome, but we have a very open environment anyone and everyone to join us. And so with that in mind, I've asked Nikki Davis, who is on our leadership team, to read the manifesto to us so we can all internalize this and take this into consideration as we welcome Nikki to the microphone to talk to us about the theme of insecure. So I encourage everyone to kind of read along, but Nikki, I'm going to hand it off to you for you to read aloud.
Sure, thank you. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty, and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate you, and encourage you to make things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, and hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in the neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome.
Thanks so much, Nikki. Well, with that in mind, our global theme this month is Insecure. The Louisville chapter of Creative Mornings came up with this theme, and Rachel Sinclair from that local community did the illustration for this event. So just as a note, if you aren't aware, all these themes are chosen by Creative Mornings chapters. We unfortunately, I think, are chapter number like 198, so they won't get to us for a while. We won't get to decide on a theme, but I'm from Louisville. That's my hometown, so I'm really proud of this illustration and that local community that helped kind of spawn this one in Columbia when I moved here. So really excited to welcome Nikki McGruder. I'm going to stop my share. Nikki, if you have any slides that you'd like to share along the way, feel free to share the screen. If not, we'll just let you talk. And so I wanted to welcome Nikki McGruder to the microphone. Carrie, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to say about Nikki before she joins us. I know that you've been working together to get her here. And then again, Carrie will be fielding the Q&A, so feel free to send questions to her along the way.
So Nikki is amazing. I think that's already been established. We've heard her talk before, and a lot of what made me think of Nikki when I heard of this particular theme of insecure, she talks a lot about inherent bias and things that we have been kind of programmed and that we may not understand that we bring to the world. And so she kind of helps us understand what that is. And so even before everything that was happening came to the world, I think Nikki has a really good way of helping people understand their insecurities, but then overcoming them. So that's why we originally asked Nikki several months ago, but with everything that's happening, I know she's got an amazing take. I've heard her speak at some recent events as well, and I'm really excited to have her share her story and share her thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you, Carrie, and good morning, everyone. Happy Juneteenth. If you aren't familiar, as Adonica shared, I do hope that you engage with us today because it is about, and let me just say before I go any further, thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Marissa. And Donica is gone, but I'll give her all the love later. But talking about Black liberation versus Black trauma is so important. My kids, every day, every year on the first day of Black History Month, I have them wear a shirt to school that says Black history didn't start with slavery. So that people can start to change the narrative of only focusing on trauma, you know, our trauma as Black Americans in this country. So I've said numerous times in the last few weeks, I absolutely loathe how we got to this point that we're at today, but I do find a reason for hope that everybody is talking about race in America. You can't find a book on the shelves for White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, or So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. Like those books, there's several, The New Jim Crow, like there's several books that we've been talking about for a long time, but in the last few months, they're on everybody's radar. So these are the times that we're living in. But I wanted to just thank you, Jasmine and Marissa. I say all the time, I tell my story of growing up in Hannibal, Missouri, and being the only Black child in my class, the only Black child in the community play, the only Black child at Girl Scout camp. So I know, we all, Adonica said it as well, we all share similar experiences, but Black people are not a monolith. So while we share similar experiences, it's very important to understand that we're all different and fabulous in our own ways. So when you know Nikki McGruder, you can't know everything about Jasmine. You can't know everything about Marissa. You can't know everything about Diamond. I'm just looking at my screen here, y'all. You can't know everything about Adonica, you know? So it's like, you have to know us as human beings, and then learn about our stories and our experiences. So thank you for that. So I do have slides, but, and I'll share them, but I just love the way the conversation started off. So I commend the organizers for putting this together and having these fabulous Black women share their stories, because we are all special and unique. So I wanted to talk to, when we talked, to Carrie's point a while ago, about this topic of insecure. And so I wanted to spend some time on it, sharing from a way of insecure and talking about race, because it's on everybody's hearts and minds. And I just feel like that's the conversation that we should have. What I'm going to do is share my screen, and we'll get through as many of these slides as we possibly can. Who said it? I think Lindsay, like, technology is never my friend, but we'll see what we can do here. Can you see it? All good? Okay. But then my computer is doing some weird stuff. Okay, here we are. So the topic of insecure, I thought it best to talk about it as it relates to race. So one of the things that I've seen, and I started this difficult conversation around race and really assessing our current environment last year at our State of Inclusivity Conference. Now, mind you, I've been doing this work for a while, but I feel like we've always tried to make sure that people were very comfortable, even though I say be comfortable with the discomfort, because it's not comfortable to talk about these things. But the way in which I was relaying the message, I was always very intentional about making sure that it was, for lack of a better word, safe. Well, I had this realization, this epiphany last year that I don't have time for that anymore. Like, I don't have time to make sure that everyone feels comfortable when we're watching people dying. We're watching families suffer. We're watching the disparities, even when we talk about COVID-19, like the disparities as it hits people of color is so traumatic. How it's happening disproportionately across the nation, across the world. So just thought, we can't have these safe conversations anymore. We need to talk about the real stuff, and we need to get down to the bottom of how we got here. So thinking about insecurity and what I've noticed that insecurity leads to, for many, we want to avoid conversations about race. We're in denial that we have race relation issues, or we get defensive because no, like that couldn't be. And we start to really deny the experiences of our Black friends, family members, colleagues, and that's where we have to stop. So I think in the last 3 weeks, even though those of us that do the work, those of us that live in the skin, have been having these conversations forever, we do, for whatever reason, we have to accommodate for the new players to the table that are really passionate about and wanting to have these conversations. So this video that I'm going to show you, and I shared my sound, so I hope it sounds through, but if not, somebody just tell me it's not working and I'll turn it off and just talk through it. But Professor Eddie Glaude, when there were a couple of domestic terrorist situations that happened last year where people were dying. One went into a local Walmart and started to shoot, and there were several casualties. And so Professor Eddie Glaude, I believe he's at Princeton now, talked about where we are and what we need to think about as it relates to what's going on in our country. So I thought it was appropriate talking about insecurity and our avoidance of the topic around race to share his video. So I want to show you this really quick and then we'll talk through what he said. Please work, please work, please work. Are you seeing a video or no? No video, okay.
Yeah, it's just like a screen grab of him, so I don't see anything playing.
Let me see.
Oh.
Did you see that? Did that happen?
Yeah, we can see this.
Okay, now let me push play and see.
I mean, you know, America's not unique in its sins as a country. We're not unique in our evils, to be honest with you. I think where we may be singular is our refusal to acknowledge them and the legends and myths we tell about our inherent, you know, goodness to hide and cover and conceal so that we can maintain a kind of willful ignorance that protects our innocence. See, the thing is that when the Tea Party was happening, we were saying, pundits, oh, it's just about economic populism. It's not about race. When people knew, social scientists were already writing that what was driving the Tea Party were anxieties about demographic shifts, that the country was changing, that they were seeing these racially ambiguous babies on Cheerios commercials, that the country wasn't quite feeling like it was a white nation anymore. And people were screaming from the top of their lungs, yo, this is not just simply economic populism. This is the ugly underbelly of the country. See, the thing is this, and I'll say this and I'll take the hit on it. There are communities that have had to bear the brunt of America confronting, white Americans confronting the danger of their innocence. And it happens every generation. So somehow we have to kind of, oh my God, is this who we are? And just again, here's another generation of babies. Think about it, a 2-year-old had his bones broken by 2 parents trying to shield him from being killed. A woman who has been married to this man for as long as I've been on the planet almost, lost her husband. For what? And so what we know is that the country has been playing politics for a long time on this hatred. We know this. So it's easy for us to place it all on Donald Trump's shoulders. It's easy for us to place Pittsburgh on his shoulders. It's easy for me to place Charlottesville on his shoulders. It's easy for us to place El Paso on his shoulders. This is us. And if we're going to get past this, we can't blame it on him. He's a manifestation of the ugliness that's in us. I've had the privilege of growing up in a tradition that didn't believe in the myths and the legends because we had to bear the brunt of them. Either we're going to change, Nicole, or we're going to do this again and again, and babies are going to have to grow up without mothers and fathers, uncles and aunts, friends, while we're trying to convince white folk to finally leave behind a history that will maybe, or embrace a history that might set them free from being white. Finally.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, so while I figure out how to get out of this, okay, here we go. So that was an important video for me to show. Can you hear me? Because now I can't see you.
We can hear you, you're good.
Okay, cool. So it was important for me to show that particular video because I feel like Professor Glau brings up important points, because this was last year that this happened. But for many that are just joining a conversation because we've been insecure about talking about race forever, and we're just starting to engage in the last few weeks, it's important to understand that for people of color, Black people in particular, I'm talking about myself and those that look like me today, we're always under attack So for many, you only see or engage when things are broadcast, like the killing of George Floyd, the domestic terrorism last year. Like there's always a story. We just had one this week. Like there's always something going on. So we really want people to start to engage in conversations outside of crisis mode. So how can we start to feel better about talking about race when we're not in the height of something that's going wrong? So I would like to get an idea of what you thought, what were your initial thoughts? Let's just spend maybe a minute on what your initial thoughts were on what you heard from Professor Glaude.
Nikki, I'm going to jump in here. So I actually was listening to this podcast yesterday with Heather McGee from Color of Change. And something she said that stuck with me was like, she said, even growing up Black in America, I always thought there's just like a handful of racists that live, or there's just racist people who live in America. And she said, I had to come to terms with the entire system is racist. Like it was founded on racism. I mean, the entire country was founded on ownership of people for slave labor. So the entire system was built on a racist concept. So it's deconstructing it over time. It's not just there are a few bad cops. It's the whole system is built to discriminate. And so I think it echoes what he was saying, was like coming to terms with and reckoning with the fact that we are all living in a country that was built on the idea of white supremacy. And if we can understand that and believe that and not feel all this like white guilt about it, it's okay, we feel bad, let's move on. Now what do we do about it? And like, how do we dismantle these systems? I just hadn't thought about it that way. And her quote like really stuck with me, is because I've been guilty of thinking the same thing. Like, oh, there's just some people, I'm from the South, it's like, oh, that's just people in the South. And it's no, it exists everywhere, because the whole entire system was founded on a principle that Black people are less than and aren't human, and that whites are better. And so even like our current government system just needs to be dismantled kind of piece by piece in order to create that equity. So what he said was spot on. I don't know that you can argue with it.
Yeah, so you can't. So you mentioned the system. So many times I hear, well, the system is broken, and the system is not broken. The system is working exactly how it was designed to work, to have people in certain places, the haves and the have-nots. And the sooner we get in context with that, and as soon as we understand that, we can work to start to dismantle the systems. So Professor Glaude, what I brought out of that was nothing will change until we change, because this is us. So we can't blame it on one person, because we, the people, I wasn't a part of that, but we, the people, had to put him in office, right? So he is a manifestation of what is in us. So nothing will change until we do. And the only way forward is through. So we cannot shy away from our ugly past. We have to start telling the truth to ourselves and each other. We can't rewrite our past to make it more palatable. The reality is we have to face what is real, and we cannot fix what we won't face. So that's why we have to get through our insecurity about white guilt, fragility, talking about race. I always tell people, as a Black woman, I put myself in a position to be a resource. So I was talking with a group the other day where someone maybe tried to have a conversation with a person of color, and the reception was, look, it is not my responsibility to educate you. Let me just say that's true. Each and every one of us has to have a responsibility, take responsibility for educating ourselves, and not burden your friends of color, colleagues of color, with teaching you how to see them as human. We're not okay. Like, we are not okay. I love that Jasmine kicked it off with that this morning. I think the acknowledgement that we're suffering mental health is a challenge. This last few weeks has especially been a challenge for me. I lost my father unexpectedly on the same day George Floyd was killed. So in this country, trying to deal with, trying to grieve my father, but also grieve because, again, we're seeing injustice in our country, and then we're watching people who should stand up for us and say that that's not okay, saying, well, we don't have all the facts. Well, something must have happened that we didn't see. And it's like, why are we continuing to have this conversation? So we have to talk about things and realize things, have those difficult conversations so you know that we didn't get here overnight, and we all have a collective responsibility to stop contributing to the systems that are in place to keep people down. So really quickly, like just talking about our history, or just preparing for the discomfort. Prepare for the discomfort because I want to define racism before we run out of time today. Any prejudice against someone because of their race. A second one, any prejudice against someone because of their race when those views are reinforced by systems of power. So talking about those systems, the second definition is the one that you want to use. If your goal is to reduce the systemic harm done to people of color by racism in America. It's really that simple. Like, if we are going to do any real work, we have to be intentional about educating ourselves and then going forward to dismantle the systems. Because when we only use the first definition, as any prejudice against someone based on race, we're inaccurately reducing the issues of race in America to a battle of the hearts and minds of individual people versus the systems that are in power and play. And so I reference Ijeoma Oluo's book, So You Want to Talk About Race, and shameless plug, she's our keynote for our State of Inclusivity Conference on August 6th of this year. Thank you. But you have to really start to think about how we got here. Race is a social construct. So talking about, to even Lindsay's point and listening to the podcast, the US economy was based on the abduction and enslavement of African people, the displacement and genocide of indigenous people, and the annexation of Mexican lands, period. So we're done at 10, right? 10?
Technically we're done, but if you need to go over, you take your time.
Okay. So I want to hit a couple of points, and then I want anyone to ask questions that you want. I'll make myself available, but we have to understand the social construct of race, okay? And really think about how we got here. So Black people in this country were ripped of our opportunity to know what tribe we came from, what country we came from. Like, we don't know, like, the traditions. I don't know if I'm going to assume I came from royalty. I'm just going to put that out there. But we don't know, those things were taken from us. The displacement and genocide of indigenous people, when you think about how absolutely ridiculous it is that they have to fight, even to this day, for land that they already occupied. And just think about that and reflect on that, how it's been made so hard for people of color to just simply exist in this country, and the annexation of Mexican lands. So think about this. And I referenced White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. So two of the books that you can't get on shelves. I believe Skylark had some though, so run down there if you're interested in those too. So the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people. Our insecurity keeps us silent. Our insecurity keeps us silent, but in times like this, the people who need you are looking at your silence as standing on the side of the oppressor, thinking of your silence as violence. So if you're not willing to make a stand for what is right and see us as human and stand up for the atrocities that go on to people of color in this country, then that is, for us, it's cruel. You're good people, and we want you to just stand up for what's right. So that's the ultimate tragedy. So I want to make sure that, and I'll give you this video that I have here to share out. But then just talking about how do you engage, because our insecurity on how to say the right thing or not wanting to say the wrong thing keeps us from engaging. Oftentimes we'll have people that want to debate us versus having a healthy dialogue. So this is just a quick reference of the focus that you want to have is on dialogue. I don't deal with debate. Like, I'm not, if you are committed to misunderstanding me, then I can't even go there with you. But if you want to have a healthy dialogue, let's do that. Because I do talk about implicit bias, and a lot of us have conversations with unchecked biases. So we're only referencing our lived experiences and not taking into account another's experience. When we have dialogue, I'm letting you know that I'm listening to understand. And I want to understand so I can have a conversation with someone who I know doesn't see me as their equal, because I want to understand how they got to that thinking, how they came to the understanding that Black people were inferior, for example. This pandemic, global pandemic, has given several opportunities to have that conversation when we're seeing people of color disproportionately impacted and dying at higher rates than everyone else. So for someone not willing to do the work, they're going to assume that I told you Black people were inferior. No, they're not going to think about the systems that are in place that keep people in poverty, that keep them on the front lines being essential, so that they don't have the opportunity and the privilege to work at home, that keeps them living in conditions where there are numerous maybe family members in the home. So there are so many different scenarios, if you will, situations that are attributed to systems of oppression that are the reason why we see the disproportionate numbers. But we have to have dialogue about that and listen to understand. So I don't do debate. So I show this video all the time. It's J Smooth. And so I'll make sure that I share it with you all so that you can watch it later. But the main point that he comes through with, and this is how I engage and have for the last several years, and I don't only use it in professional space, I also use it in my personal life. And I'll run this on my kids with the quickness. It's really an easy way, an easier way to have difficult conversations. When you're focusing on what people did by their words and with their words or their actions versus who we think they are. So he gives the example of where he talks about race in that video, but you can apply it across the board. So if I'm not saying, you know, I think you're a racist, because when we do that, we'll give people an out. So now they're focusing on, well, no, I have like 2 Black friends, and I listened to that podcast, and I went to that park, you know, so they're dancing around the issues when we speculate and we give them an out. So now we're talking about who they think they are versus what they did that we need to hold them accountable for. So this helps us to have these conversations and focusing on what people did versus who they are. So I'll share that video because it's my favorite. And I think it's very helpful, and it's changed the game for me in having difficult conversations. What I'm hoping that you creatives, all of us creatives, I'm just gonna claim it, will do after we read the books, after we listen to the podcast, after we have one conversation, how do we move past the dialogue and really think about how to self-assess and identify how you're going to contribute to contribute to the dismantling, of systemic racism. Peggy McIntosh, she has a Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, and it talks about privilege. If you haven't read that. It's a PDF file. I can send that as well, but it's a good resource to understand privilege, which is something that people want to avoid the conversation about. I listened to I saw a video just this week that was shared with me. One of my favorite gospel rappers, Lecrae, was sitting down with a pastor who was telling him that in these difficult times, he knows we need to have the conversation, but there are some terms that people just can't get with. So maybe if we change the term, we can have a better conversation. So he wanted to change white privilege to talk about white blessings. And the blessing that was slavery, we have to talk about that. And he lost me there. And so Lecrae was just sitting there and nodding. And when it was shared with me, I was like, I don't care about his apology that we know is going to come next, because that always happens. I want to know why Lecrae sat there and what he was thinking. So Lecrae did put out a video on Instagram where he explained that he was not okay with it. He was trying to process, didn't really know how to respond, and I can appreciate and respect that. But we cannot change dialogue to make people comfortable. It is what it is. It is what it is. And I can have conversations with you all day. Like now Target, as I affectionately call it, and they have for a number of years, have now a Black hair care line or ethnic multicultural hair care line. So it used to be when I was traveling or just, I would always have to go to Dallas where my sister was to get my hair products for my hair, but now they're mainstream and I can find them in Target or Walmart. I can find them more visibly. They're more visible and accessible now. But when I would travel and sometimes even now, depending on where I'm going, I'm not going to be able to find my stuff. It's a privilege to just know that you can go in the store and get your shampoo. So it's just things like that. It's privilege to go into a space and know that you're going to be okay. It's privilege. I was looking for decorations, party decorations, and wanted one that for my child. I wanted a mermaid. She's a mermaid, she thinks. The other one's a unicorn. But the mermaid wanted a party, but I couldn't find any mermaids that had her melanin. And so things like that are privileged. Like I could find some, I'd have to order and wait for it to be custom made and get to me versus going to Party City and just getting what I need. That's privilege. And so it gets a lot deeper than that, but those are a couple of quick examples. Do your own research. Do not depend on people of color. You can depend on the people of color like myself who volunteered to be in this position. But your colleague, and especially outside of relationship, when you're in relationship, it's different because your Black friend may be open to more of a conversation, but don't put that responsibility solely on their shoulders. Plant a seed to keep the conversation going, hold other people accountable, and be involved every day as you are today. So I'll leave you with this. Do not let insecurity stall you in this fight for justice in this country. Do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you do better. We have to do better because, I'm not okay. So those that you know and you love are not okay. I'm raising children. I shared at a protest just this week, my 7-year-old, my partner told her about George Floyd when I was away tending to my father. And I wasn't prepared for the question of, well, why don't they like us? They don't like me just because of my skin around the dinner table, having a casual conversation. And what do you say to a child that can't get it? Because I'm still struggling with, I don't know. I don't know. So do the best you can until you know better. I think we all know better now. No one can say that they don't know that they need to do something. This last few weeks alone have reinforced that. So let's do better. That's all I have. Any questions?
So first off, Nikki, thank you so much. This was wonderful. We do have a couple questions. I know that last part was very helpful for me because as a white person, I know one of my roles right now is to push back on other white people who are saying things that are ignorant or need to be pushed back on. So that information about that dialogue was very helpful. Thank you. A couple questions. This first one from Mike. Social media seems to be the way many people are learning about this nation's quote unquote, well, bolded, real history and speaking up about Black Lives Matter and what have you. While social media has certainly helped spread the word about systemic racism, do you believe there are harmful effects of social media when it comes to making real progress towards change?
The thing with social media, I take frequent social media breaks. Let me just be clear. Because people are more emboldened now than ever to say and do whatever. You can get great information from it. I think social media has highlighted, these things that we're going through now, we've been going through for forever, years, decades, more, hundreds of years. But now we're in an age where it can be visible because someone will record it and share it out. So in those ways, I find social media very helpful. But then there are, at the risk of using words that from someone that I don't care for, some things can be fake. It can be fake news. And that troubles me because people will jump on a bandwagon. Social media is helpful though in so many ways in reaching people quickly. It's the sign of our times. I don't think we can get away from it, and I don't think we should. And tell me if I'm not answering the question, but with anything, you take away what's good from it, you take away what's not, and you have to realize that I call them the fingertip gangsters. Like, they can go really hard behind a computer, and the things that would be said over social media wouldn't be said in conversation, not for fear. I'm not gonna put hands on anybody. That's not what I'm saying, but we have a sense of security in this topic of insecure. Social media and being behind a computer gives us more security to say more than we would in person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So good and bad. Sometimes it's too much coming at me, and because I take on everything and I'm like, what do I need to work on? What new content do we need to develop? I try to stay engaged, but at the same time, sometimes it's too much. This last 3 weeks have been too much, to be quite honest, but the work has to continue. But yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. So thank you for offering to be a resource. I know it's exhausting for people of color to constantly have to answer questions and tell their story, but I appreciate you being a resource for us. The second question, I would love your thoughts on how to approach people who choose to be silent and use their Christianity to explain that they love all people and they don't feel like they should have to talk about this specific thing being an issue because they choose to love all people. So what is the best way? This is a question from Sarah. What is the best way to respond and to have a dialogue with somebody who just kind of chooses to stay silent on this?
So again, you are going to have those people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I hear all lives matters versus Black Lives Matter in that question. So let's talk about that, because I feel like there are lots of good examples that are out there now that are helping people try to break it down. So when we say Black Lives Matter, regardless of if you support the movement or what have you, Black lives can't possibly matter. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. And we've seen, so how do you separate, you can't say all lives matter if we're constantly it's being reinforced over and over again, but except for Black lives, right? So the question I would have in engaging them, one of the cutest, it was not cute, but it made sense. So you see someone, the fire department is hosing down the house that's burning on the street. And has everyone seen this? And someone says, well, wait a minute, my house, don't all houses matter? I need water on my house too. And it's like, okay, your house does matter, but your house is not burning. So we're focusing on the one that is burning. So use that in terms of what's happening to Black people in this country. We're burning. So yes, we need to focus on the Black lives, not taking away from the fact that your life matters too, but you're not burning, right? So spending some time just having a conversation and showing examples. I still am troubled by how people can deny when we see so many examples. I think back to the killing in the church, the 9 lives that were lost, and they were able to take Dylan in. I believe the word was they got him something to eat on the way to taking him to jail, but he's just slaughtered 9 human beings. And he was able to be brought to justice, brought out, taken to grab food on his way to jail. But even the thought that a Black person may have a weapon or not, maybe it's just Skittles, or maybe it's just, we keep seeing over and over examples. We watched George Floyd died in 8 minutes and 46 seconds with a knee on his neck. We're watching these constant examples of where we're trying to explain away why it's okay for this Black life to be lost. Think about it, because once you see, you can't unsee. So I want you to start really paying attention to how things are brought out in the news, what pictures are used. I've seen an example, and I'll find it and send it if I can. But it was the same community where 3 young white guys were doing robberies. But then there was one where 3 young Black guys were doing robberies or something like that. Well, with the white guys, their mugshots were not mugshots. They showed all of their private school photos. And these young men are, they've gone astray. They're really good kids, what have you. But then the Black guys, they showed mugshots. And so we're always, when you think about news and crime, and even when people die, they're killed, we're trying our best to vilify them as if they deserve to die. Like, don't mourn them. They deserve to die. We saw it with George Floyd. Like, there's always, it's like the punishment was deserving. The death was deserved. But if you start to pay attention to how news is reported, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So you just automatically know if a killing happens, just wait, because then we'll start to talk about what their criminal history was, or whatever they've gone through or done in their lifetime that almost it's like you should justify this, versus when something happens, even with Dylan killing, and his last name is escaping me, or I don't need to remember that, but we were talking about, a teacher was talking about, he was such a good kid. Like, he must just be troubled. So we start focusing on his mental health and what was wrong there. So these are the reasons why. We have to explain it away. Like, this is probably why this happened, versus vilifying him and talking about criminal history and all these things. So you have to see, all lives do matter. But let's focus on the ones that are burning right now and get them to a point where they're receiving justice that's deserved. I could talk about this all day, but yeah.
I wanted to jump in here. I know Carrie said I think that was the last of the questions submitted, but Nikki, my question's not really I don't want to say it's as light, but I think just as a white millennial woman, like walking through the world, life has been a lot easier for me, for sure. So I want to recognize that. But I think as I have Black family members now and friends and people that I'm surrounded by, my question is like, what's the right way? Maybe there isn't a right way, or what's the best way for me to ask questions more about just like Black culture in general? So my questions aren't like, explain racism to me, but hey, tell me about like this term that I watch Insecure, you know, and like oftentimes I was telling Jasmine, I watched that show and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. So I'm like Googling, what does that mean? Because that show is unapologetically like about Black people, and they're just our cultural references or things that I don't understand, that I'm learning about Black women's hair or clothing or particular like cultural things. And so I'm just more genuinely curious, where I'm like, can you tell me what that means? And like, is that okay? Is that okay to ask like my Black friends and family? Like, can you explain what I was telling Diamond the other day? Like, I kept hearing Black women use the word edges, and I was like, what are edges? Like, I don't know what that is. And so like, I that's not something I'm familiar with. And so I think in more of like a lighter note, I'm just trying to understand that we are different. We look different and our experiences are different. So I don't want to be colorblind to you. I want to know about you. It's like, tell me what it means. And can you explain that to me? Because I want to better understand your culture, because I'm already familiar with mine. And so I think my question is just like, what's the best way to do that? And does that put more pressure on you, or does my question make sense?
It does.
Okay.
But again, I feel like it's up to that individual.
Okay.
Be easier in relationship.
Yeah.
So like, well, I can't say that now because people know the work that I do, but if some random person came up to say, hey, can you tell me about edges?
Oh, I wouldn't ask a random person.
I would be, but that's just using that example. Yeah. So it's always easier in relationship, but right. You would have to ask, like you use Diamond. Diamond, is it okay? Like, I have questions and I just want to run them past you. Is that okay? And let her set boundaries. Like, there are some days where she'll want to explain it to you, and there are other days she may be like, give me a minute. It's too soon, But I think one of the best things that you can do is do your own research and then come back like, hey, so I read this about this cultural celebration or this term that I heard. Tell me what your perspective is. What do you think? Is this true? Like, what is your experience? And then I would be able to tell you my experience. But one of the things that's really trying is to understand that Black people are not a monolith. So again, I said that earlier, like you can learn what I allow and what's important to me that might be different for Diamond. You know what I'm saying? So we're not a monolith. Like, we share cultural experiences. We share this beautiful melanin in our skin, but we don't share everything. So what works for me might not work for her. And talking about hair, I can tell you, I think I speak for most Black women, never just touch it. Don't do that.
I'm not a Black woman, and I don't want anyone touching my hair either. So I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that answers my question. And yeah, most of my not curiosity makes you sound like you're this thing to be curious about, and I don't want to make it sound that way, but there's like an entire culture that I'm not a part of that I'm so interested in because I want to be better educated. And I've asked Diamond questions before. I've been like, can I ask you a question? Because I'm just curious and I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So your answer helps me, but you wouldn't believe the amount of Googling I'm doing after watching Insecure. Because there are just so many things that I'm realizing that I am completely unaware of because I've been walking through the world looking like me. So I really do appreciate you, Nikki, and for Marissa and Jasmine and Adonica for being a part of our event today. We want to create this space moving forward, not just today for Black and Brown voices in our community. We want to do this moving forward. So I'm opening this up. If you have anybody else in the community that you think would be a good part of our event to feature and to elevate, please send those my way, because have only been in Columbia 4 years. I don't know everyone, and I don't have as much experience as we do collectively. So I would love any recommendations of folks that you think are in not only just a person of color, but the LGBTQ community. I would love to have someone featured from that community space as well, because everyone is welcome here, and this is a creative space because everyone is creative. So please feel free to send those to me at columbia@creativemornings.com. I'm happy to hear what you guys have to say. This event does not need to be run exclusively by me. So I just really appreciate all of you being here, and for these women being courageous and vulnerable and sharing their stories today. So just really thank you so much. I wanted to give Nikki a little bit of thanks for being here. I hope we cross paths again soon. And again, the Juneteenth celebration is, if you haven't gotten a ticket, you can watch at 3 p.m. this afternoon on the site. The website is on the chat. Otherwise, I'm sorry we went over quite a bit, guys, but I think this was beneficial and necessary. So thank you so much for being here. Love all of you, and I hope to see you next month for our July event. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.